that upbeat note, let's let's start. Yes.
So everybody, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I think, as you know, we decided to do this program for Lustre subscribers, and particularly those that have not joined Lustre as members when we converted to a paid membership a couple of months ago. We are doing this because, one, we miss you, of course, but also because you're an important part of our community. And we want to make sure that we stay in touch and that we hear from you and that you keep up with what we're up to as well as what you're up to. So for today's half-hour program, Karen and I are going to have a conversation with Rebecca Bloom, who's a Lustre member. And we're going to talk about aging in today's world and what it's like, what it feels like, strategies for dealing with it, strategies for keeping our sense of humor and our attitude intact. And we're going to ask you to share comments and your perspectives, whatever, by putting them in the chat. Although if you want to turn your camera off, as we said, and ask a question that way, that's fine. One more thing. At the end of this conversation, we're going to stay on the phone for a couple minutes. If anybody wants to talk about Lustre or what's going on with Lustre, how we see the future of Lustre, please do stay on and we can have that conversation.
And just to confirm, this is all being recorded.
Yes.
And welcome to all of you. I think many of you probably know that I'm Karen Wagner and this is Erica Baird, and we are the co-founders of Lustre. So we won't delve further into our own lively lives, but this is Rebecca Bloom. She is somebody who started her life, although she didn't apparently stay very long, as a lawyer in a law firm in New York City, actually in an office extremely close to mine. And then for reasons we won't get into either, she just abandoned the law and went off to do something else. But she now lives in New York and California and has become a health advocate for women over 55, mainly those with breast or ovarian cancer. She's working on a book called When Women Get Sick, which will be full of stories about how women support women as they face health journeys. And she was kind enough, she reached out to us and we enjoyed speaking with her, and she was kind enough to agree to have this conversation with us about age and women and what we're all doing in this relatively crazy world that we're living in. And so why don't we start with that? Rebecca, I think that one thing you like about Lustre, which I'm glad you like it, is that we try to stay relatively upbeat, even though there are things going on in the world that aren't all that upbeat. We sort of hope that has a positive effect on the aging process. But tell us what you think about it.
Well, I really believe that it does have a positive effect. And, you know, one of my recent jobs that I did for 3 years, which is actually how I learned about you guys, is I was the content and editorial director of an age tech company, which no longer exists, but the company was all about trying to help people stay active and engaged as they reach this third of life. And, you know, as I say, that's how I discovered you guys. And that's why I reached out, because I was so interested in the way that you express the proposition. And as you say, yes, you do remain upbeat, but it's not a kind of Pollyanna type of upbeat. It's, you know, full of wisdom and understanding of reality kind of upbeat. For example, if you stay active and engaged and socially connected, it's actually good for your health. It's good for your well-being. It isn't just something you do because the gratitude journalers and Instagrammers tell you to do it. It's actually a science-based thing. And when you live that way, you see the difference. And so, you know, that's what brought me to Lustre. Is I just really like the way you guys talk about it. I like the fact that, you know, you don't say this is the same for everyone. You acknowledge that people have style and experience and affinities, and the idea that people can come together around those and stay connected and learn from one another is just super appealing.
That's positive. I mean,
Thank you.
I think that, I mean, one of the things that I'm finding is we have morphed over time, since we first retired, is that the world has gotten much more complicated. The pandemic certainly changed a lot of the way we thought we were aging, right? And so now we're having to adjust in a way that was unexpected in some respects. And what I mean by that is, very specifically, is, for example, we always knew, we thought we knew, that socialization, as you said, Rebecca, I mean, is important. That you need people in your lives, you need a social life, to put it that way. And then all of a sudden we're on Zoom all day, which is a wonderful thing if you have family, particularly if it's far, far away, and you can stay connected, you can see them and say, "Ooh, you look tired," or whatever, right?
And of
But
course, it's lovely for events like this.
yeah, and we got very used to dressing, from the waist up, you know, and at 5 o'clock getting a glass of wine and visiting with our friends that way. And then that's over, or at least kind of over,
Thank God.
right? And now you have a choice again. Do I just stay home, keep my sweatpants on, have a glass of wine, and talk to Rebecca, right? Which is not particularly good for me. It has a little health benefits, but not half as much as if I actually get out and go someplace and have a glass of wine and a conversation with somebody in a much more fluid way, right? So a lot of things that we did automatically, then we stopped doing, and now we have to, and just as an example, we have to work harder to ensure that we're actually accomplishing what we want to accomplish. Does that sound right? I don't know. I don't know if you guys experience that, but I think that it's much post-pandemic, particularly.
We have to relearn what we're doing. We have to get socialized again. And I also think as you get older, it's more, and especially if you are retired, it's more difficult to reach out to people and to meet them and to make friends and do all that. You have to have a plan around a lot of it.
But it's, I'm going to ask you something in 1 second, Rebecca, but isn't it, I mean, in some respects, all the dissonance around us, I mean, all the confusion and all the conflict and all the TikToks and all the stuff, in some ways gives us an entry to those relationships and contacts that we might not have had before. I mean, in a funny kind of way, we have a perspective that, at least I'm finding, that kids younger than us are more interested in talking to us because they need some sense that things are going to turn out okay, and they just need to think about it slightly differently or whatever. I don't know, Rebecca, whether that resonates with you or not.
Yeah, it does actually. It resonates a lot. Kind of a couple things. It's playing off of both what you just said and also Karen, what you just said. Like, if you think about it, this moment when you retire is that moment when you theoretically disconnect, in the worst case scenario, right, from this life that you've had and this world that you've known. And really it's those loose ties, those loose connections that are part of your day every day until that moment when they're not. And so if you think about it, it's like the pandemic almost made us all retire, regardless of our age or our stage, right? So
Yeah.
so you said, Karen, well, it's like you have to relearn, right? And then going back to what you said, Erica, I think there is something about what the Lustre community can do to set an example for the kids, if we're going to call them that.
Everyone younger than us.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because we're doing this anyway. We're moving on to this different phase of life. Everybody else kind of got frozen in this shedding of loose ties. This idea, I think we talked about it before. It's almost like we all have this connection debt. Like, how you don't sleep enough, you have a sleep debt. Well, it's like we have a connection debt all of a sudden. And how do we rebuild that, and how do we get it back? And, because of what Lustre stands for and what your mission is, even before the pandemic, it was all about that reinventing. Well, now everybody's got to do that. So that's what's so cool about being part of this community is it's an opportunity to lead. So I love it.
Well, especially because we did do this before.
Right.
And some of our kids who went into this lockdown thing when they were before they were fully socialized, let's put it that way, they don't exactly know what they're doing. They don't even know it's better to be with another human than to see the human on a screen. So you need to sort of re-educate them. And I think from the perspective of having been around the quad now for 70 years, we know things that they obviously don't know, and it's good for us to use it for their benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that COVID, I think, really did, and maybe it's the environment too, is it makes you, I mean, aging is not the most wonderful thing that's ever happened.
Well, it's
I mean,
better
after
than the
13,
alternative,
it was
yeah.
always very 13, you know, being
Yeah.
14 was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's better than the alternative. But figuring out how you want to age. I mean, like last night on Lustre, we had a program on skincare. And I have to say, I didn't know any of it. I pretty much knew very little about any of those things. But it motivated me to think, you know, you do want to look, it takes more time, it takes more patience, but you really do want to look your very best. I don't want to be anybody different. I mean, I'm happy
you don't
being
want to
me.
be a teenager.
And I don't want to be a teenager,
But you
but
wanna
there
look
are
good.
things that now require my attention that may not have required it before. And they should be more important to me than they have been in the past. You know, it's kind of like things like you were saying. It changes your focus a little bit when you accept the fact that you're losing some abilities to do certain things, but then you have other abilities to do other things, and some of that is making you better than you would otherwise be. And making any sense at all, I don't know.
Now, you're younger than we are, Rebecca, but you must be experiencing some of these things.
I most certainly am. Yes. And, you know, for me, I think, you know, when I really look at it, I'm looking for models of grace. And,
Mm.
you know,
Lovely way to put it.
yeah, because, you know, and grace can take so many forms. It can be using your gifts in a new way. You know, sort of expressing your inner generosity in a way that you might not have had the opportunity to do. You know, one of the things that we talked about when we first met, or maybe it was the other day, was the idea that, you know, when you're super, super busy and you don't really have a second to look up, you can write a check, but you can't always get involved the way you might like to. And there's a freedom in kind of, you know, slow cooking your life a little bit more. It doesn't all have to be microwaved and quick all of a sudden. And so you can say, oh, gee, you know, I always cared about X. Well, now I can actually go be in the room and see what that feels like to be, you know, not just a philanthropist, but an activist about things that I care about. And there's just no question, while you may be enriching others, you're also enriching your own life by doing those things. And what a gift. If you know, talk about nice work if you can get it. It's one of the great parts of not being in the alternative of the aging.
That's for sure.
So remember, the other day, when were talking about one of the studies, I think it was, about drinking wine, or drinking.
Oh yeah, so
Erica
yes.
always liked that drinking wine, but
Well,
Yeah. So I was taking a walk with a
Who knew?
very, very dear friend who is a recently retired doctor, although she's already gone back to work part-time because she isn't about that. And she was telling me that, you know, anytime you select for social connection, you will see a difference. Example, if you show people who drink hard but drink alone, their health is going to degrade so rapidly. If they drink hard with other people, less so. So, you know,
It's so interesting.
if that's the justification you need for carousing in a group, there it is.
Yeah, it's a nice way to think
and I
about.
don't think it works if you drink together with other people on Zoom. You need to be physically with them,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, that study wasn't done. So, but I think you probably extrapolated it right. Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of things like that that you have to work hard at, whether it's purpose or finding people to connect with or finding your new community or finding how you want to look and going through the, is this my style? Is this my new style? Is this not my new style? It's work to try to figure out. And I don't think anymore there's a destination. Like Karen was always the colorful person at work as long as I've known her for decades, right? I mean, she landed on something that she likes. Right.
Sure.
I think now you can kind of try a lot of different things and see how you want to change. You're not you're not pigeonholed. I don't
Well,
have to show
that's
up every day the same.
no, that's right. But you just hit on something else that, I've thought a lot about when I think about kind of how you, sort of fashion your third, as it were. And that's the idea that take those things that you were doing that you loved and pull them out of the mundane and the parts that you aren't so sad to leave behind, and then take them and run with them, whether that's an affinity. For example, me, yes, I didn't stay in a law firm forever, but I did fall in love with excellence and wordplay. So I became an editor and a writer and a storytelling coach because I took that out and ran with it. And I think that's part of the secret sauce for me of reinventing well, wherever you are at whatever phase really, but particularly this one, is think to yourself, what are those things that I love that make me feel in the zone? And I mean, Karen, there's more to you than wearing bright colors, but obviously that's an easy thing to talk about, right? So we talk about it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, if that's all I was known for, I'd probably be kind of happy, you know what I mean? But because it's a great signature. But that idea that you just sort of lean into those things, there's a phrase that's overused, but you know what I mean? Just take them and grab hold of them. And the other thing is there's such a joy in connecting with people who share those affinities, whatever they are. And that's a really good key to finding your way, I think.
I think you're right. I mean, there was an article in the Times, I think it was this week, about the importance of girl talk. I think it called it, of saying there's a quality to conversation among women that just doesn't exist either among men or when a man is in the room. And I think that's our experience too. There's just some level that you feel comfortable going to when it's all women that you don't when it's a mixture of the sexes. The other thing I think is what you said about pulling out is also true with the notion of how you're transitioning from work, because Karen and I are just thinking about what you said. When we retired, we kind of made a list, or at least mentally, with
We actually wrote it down.
Yes,
Yes, we
with
did.
the yellow pad. Saying, what do we really miss about working? And the first thing on our list, which is so ironic post-pandemic, was our office.
Mm-hmm.
So
having a place
and a
to
business
go
card.
to do whatever that was separate from your
Yeah,
home.
so this is these two retired ladies walking around New York City having lunch and doing that kind of stuff. We decided we have to go find an office and we have to find somebody to print business cards. They didn't say anything really very much except our email, I guess, or something.
But you like them. So.
Yeah, I found an office. It was tiny, downtown, and we found business cards, and that started us. Now we need something to do in the office that we want to go to, but it's like
We're finding
Yeah.
plenty to do, I'd say.
yes, I would say so.
But yes, I am reminded often of a conversation I had with a friend a little while ago who has a mother, and she had a grandmother who's now no longer with us. But she remembers her grandmother as being at home, usually dressed in a house dress, doing a lot of cooking. And that was how she loved her dearly, and that's how she remembers her. Her mother, on the other hand, who is widowed, she gets out and about, she travels, she meets people, she has a new car, she's always out doing things. And she said, my friend said, this is the difference between generational age. That was then, this is now, and Lord knows what's going to happen next. But I've always thought that was an appealing view. So she's now in her 50s, she wasn't all that excited about ending up like her grandmother, but she's extremely excited about ending up like her mother. So that's a good step forward.
Yeah.
The other different perspective, I think, is when I think about my family, you know, you could get older in the old days and think, okay, I'm going to retreat from the world. I mean, I don't need all this. The world is a mess. There's Vietnam protests everywhere. I don't understand it, you know, but I'm not going to live that long. So that's your problem. You know, honey, that's your problem. Now you can't, if you're going to live for 30 more years, it's your problem too, right? I mean, the things that, you know, ChatGPT isn't going anywhere, right? It's going to become part of your life, whether you like it or not, in some way, right? And so,
And
and you can't say, I don't need to know that, you
the
know?
world has gotten smaller. Everything affects
Yeah.
everything, and you're gonna have to live in it. And again, to bring some perspective to
Yeah.
it is probably valuable as one of the things we can offer to other people. Because
I think that's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, you know, not to get too doom and gloom about AI, but you know, one of the things that is lovely about having a trusted community of thoughtful people is it's a place to go to get truth. You know, I think we're not always so sure anymore. We're being bombarded with so much information. It's getting algorithmically thrown at us. Did I get that word
Mhm.
out? I got it out.
Yep, you did.
You know, we don't always know if we're being served what we really want to know or what it is that they think we should know so that we take the action that they want us to take. And that's usually around buying something or clicking on something or giving our attention to something in the attention economy, right? So another reason I think to kind of circle the wagons in an expansive and open way, and join communities around affinities or interests is it's nice to know that you're getting told the truth, that you're hearing the real from other real humans. I mean, that's sounds a little paranoid, I realize, but you know, how do you combat the artificial by delving into the real? That's how.
That's true.
Well,
Yeah.
that's really an interesting perspective and incredibly modern. This is not something people had to worry about 50 years ago.
I
But we
don't
do-
think my grandmother worried about it, and I'm not sure my mother even worries about it. Yeah, I think you're right.
But here we are. That's a really interesting perspective.
So what else about aging? I mean, the downside of this is people still not making stuff for us.
Yeah.
I need clothes with sleeves. I don't need dresses that are up to my tush,
Yeah.
or down to my ankles for that matter. You know, it is so bizarre to me that while there's more ads with people like us, I like the new Peloton ad with the lady is,
Mhm.
right? But they're really, I mean, here we are in huge numbers with huge amounts of resources, and people still ignore us. That is just amazing to me.
Well, we're putting ourselves on the map, I think, but I mean.
Well, we got to figure out, I mean, I think one of Luster's missions is got to figure out how do we make that known. I think it's not intentional. I think they just don't understand who we are and are kind of given up and saying, well, we want to look like some 25-year-old anyway, so they'll just market to the 25-year-old and we'll say, oh, looks good for me, and I'll buy that too, or something.
I think that's right. I think, you know, business tends to gravitate towards, you know, this kind of soft middle of what they perceive to be the dominant culture, right? So the dominant culture is probably, you know, millennial at this point. And, you know, I'm not particularly interested in the whole millennial boomer tension. I think gen to gen communication is so much more productive.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that whole okay boomer moment was, yeah, I mean, it was a great hashtag. You know, but it was, I don't think we're going to look back on this and go, that was the okay boomer era. I think it's a flash in the pan culturally. But I do think what you say is right, Erica. It's like there's this just sort of natural default among marketers and communicators. And I mean, I know this because I was communicating specifically to this demographic that we're talking about, this 55 and up demographic. And what was interesting was, it almost felt like there was this small group of us who were kind of the keeper of the keys. We would have people come to us and say, can you help us talk to our Medicare clients? We don't really know how to talk to them. Can you explain what words should we use? What should we not say? It's like, you really don't need that. You don't need that much intuition to understand that people are people, and that, let's just say 70 is the new 50, or, that's a, shorthand way of saying it, right? But, like look at the way you guys talk about Lustre on your website, still cool. Like, of course we're relevant. Of course we have something to say. We can read, we can write, we have wisdom, we have capital, we have freedom, we have choices. So of course
we can walk and chew gum. So I mean,
yes, I can. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really just sort of like the way it's like lazy default, that business just goes that way. And data builds on itself. They only test one thing or two things. They do A/B testing, and they only test two things. Well, they don't test C, then they don't know what C is going to be. They just go, well, out of A and B, this is the winner. And I think that's the way a lot of decisions get made out there in the sort of advertising and marketing and content world. So I think that might be why you see that dearth of messaging. And then it's always like, it's almost other when they do it. Like, oh, look at that adorable lady on the Peloton commercial, like you said, right? I mean, there's more of those adorable ladies than there are of the, they're the ones who are buying the bikes, right?
But in the defense of some of these people, this is a new generation in some respect. So it's taken a while for people to say, oh yes, that is not the same as my grandmother. These people are different. They have different characteristics, and they want different things, and maybe I should think about trying to.
No, I've met a lot of young people who are trying to kind of get at that because it'd be good for them to get at it, right?
It would be. Yeah. So I think the purpose of all this, I mean, what I always get out of these conversations with you too, Rebecca, is that, sometimes it's overwhelming, the fact that you're getting older and all these things are happening, and you just think it's easy to get down. And I have to say that one of the real beauties of the community that we have is that if you ever feel that way, it's so easy to just call you up and talk to you and feel good again. It's like you're doing something good, or you're, it's not all down. It's like the future has a lot of potential.
Oh yeah. Well,
you're relevant. I mean, the not invisible and not done has always been our motto, and that's who we are.
No, I love it. And you should call me anytime. And, I just want to say one more thing about that. I work with and advocate for women, both on the workplace side and the health space side and the insurance and coverage side, all of it. I guess there's three sides, maybe even more, who are dealing with illness. And, we were talking about, how tough the alternative can be, but I find this work incredibly uplifting, because when you meet somebody who really wants to heal, and you actually have some knowledge or wisdom from your past career or experience that you can offer, and that you can help somebody do something so positive, it's a wonderful thing to use your gifts like that. It truly is. And when people are on those kind of journeys and dealing with those challenges, and you see up close how brave and thoughtful and graceful and positive a person can be, it's just a great feeling. So,
well, I think we end on that note.
I think we do. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. For those of you on the phone, as we mentioned in the beginning, Karen and I are going to stay on, and Rebecca too. Just in case anybody wants to either ask us a question in the chat or turn on your camera and ask it live about Lustre and what we're up to. Lustre is still at www.lustre.net. Just to say this, we have our members now are all over the country with concentration in the major cities, as you would expect. We've got a tremendous program of programming. I mean, really wonderful. We've been really lucky to have as many lovely speakers who are not generally around or available to talk to people like us, but have been really interesting. And so if, you know, we're interested to know how you want to be involved or continue to be involved, if you want to continue to be involved, how we should be communicating with you, you know, just stay in touch periodically if that's important. We're interested in anything you have to say. So if you do, please do put a question in the chat or turn your camera on or however you would like to do that. And if there aren't any, we will of course see you next time. I don't
Yes,
think so.
I think no questions.
No questions. So thank you all very much for joining us. We hope you join us as Lustre, and if not, we will see you again at some time.
And thank you, Rebecca, so much. Really
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thanks
Really
so much. So great
Take
to see you
care.
guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.